Okay, so this is the situation quite early on in the game, so I'm still experimenting with how to amalgamate the black powder rules with red actions, but it seems to be working so far. What I've done, which I mentioned on the previous video, is I put some officer stands on the table and then only given the chits to those stands rather than having an officer with each company, and that's working quite well. Basically, I've assumed a standard command rating of 8 and then added or subtracted the values that are on these cards. So that officer there is 0, this one -1. Oh, and I also gave an officer to the train and have made it a completely separate unit. So they have an officer called Fedorov, who is a +1. And that's working out all right. So I'm issuing orders and using the 12. I'm using centimeters rather than inches, but for every 12 centimeters away from the commander that the unit being ordered is, you deduct 1 from the command rating. And yeah, that's working quite well. You'll notice over here as well, the keen-eyed who have watched the previous video might have noticed that some of these officers have been changed, and that's because the Red Army has a rule in Red Actions that if a mob is ordered to advance, say, and they fail the order, then the officer is shot and replaced by a commissar. And that has actually happened twice already. It's not easy to do, but it has actually already happened to two of these officers over on this side, and it seems like that's much easier to occur when you're using this amalgam, partly because I've applied it not just to companies that have the mob characteristic, but to any unit, and of course you're almost bound at some stage to fail an order in black powder, but then you roll, in the red action rules, you roll a d6, and if you roll a 6, then the officer is shot and replaced by a commissar. So there's a 1 in 6 chance of it happening, I suppose. And I've already had 2 officers shot, and all the companies under their command then receive these terror markers. And the way the terror markers work is that once you have more terror markers on a unit than stands in the unit, they rout, they come off the table. So the Reds have already lost the machine gun company, because there's only 1 stand in the machine gun company, and the company that was here had 2 terror markers on it and ran, basically. The train is slowing down because the large guns on it can only fire when the train is stationary, and the same applies to the white tanks, that they can only fire, or they can only fire the cannon when they're stationary. The female tank there with machine guns can move and fire. The 2 armies aren't in range to fire at one another yet, apart from these large guns on the tank and on the train, and the guns on the tank there have now just come within range of one another. But the white artillery has basically trying out some target practice, I suppose. They've fired on. They've decided to fire on the village, and they did score a direct hit on that building there, which has been destroyed. So the whites have made a lot more advances. They've been throwing really good command rolls and getting 3 moves and so on. So they've made some rapid advances. They're almost in the village now. The coloured companies over there almost got to the church, whereas the Bolsheviks keep refusing to move and their officers keep getting shot as a result. And this artillery here is limbered up and is advancing, whereas the Whites' artillery has basically stayed put and has been firing the village. And the planes in Red Actions, you basically, on a roll of 5 or 6, the plane comes on the table and it stays on the table for 3 turns and then it's finished for the game. I've just got these planes on the table the whole time. It's nice to have them flying over the table. But what has happened is that the red aircraft did enter the table, strafed this cavalry and inflicted a terror marker on it, which it later rallied off. But then in a later turn, this fighter came on the table, and when there are 2 opposing fighters on the table, they basically chase one another off. So these 2 planes are now out of the game, and the second White plane has yet to appear. And yeah, as I say, it's early days yet. The 2 armies have still effectively got to come within range of one another. But I think it seems to be a nice dovetailing of the 2 rules, and it will work. So I'm definitely going to employ this method in the future. Anyway, show you a bit more of the game later.